What is happening out there, Roto Scouts baseball fans? Good to see you guys. Welcome to the Thursday show. Apologies for getting started a couple minutes late. We just had three lineups just dropped in the last moment before the show there, so I figured I would grab them. Actually, another one just came out. It just looks like the Phillies just landed. Let me grab that one too while we're saying hello. But welcome to Thursday. Tiny little 5-gamer to talk about tonight. Should be able to breeze on through this slate. Pop the Phillies in here. Let me just grab the projected. I think it's basically the same. How's everybody doing out there? Anybody hit anything nice last night? Nicky Castellanos, no boom today. Bryson Stott. Fun way to start the show, watching me put a lineup in. Jonah Ross and the hell's this guy's name? Wilson? Weston, right? Yeah, Weston Wilson. Keep wanting to call him Wade Wilson, which I almost just typed twice. Wade Wilson obviously being Deadpool. So the Reds lineup's funky. They've got Ahmed Rosario now. They've also got Dominic Smith now, apparently. They signed him like 3 hours ago, and he's in the lineup. So that's going to be a fun one. All right. We'll load those up to the site later on. So, short little 5-gamer. Well, let's say hi to everybody first. Cujo's here. Lone Wolf. Good to see you guys. Matthew Patterson. Santander Double Dong. Like that call. Stephen Leibowitz. Howdy. Good to see you, buddy. Phil Still. Been a while for Phil. Good to see you back. Tizzlemain. Cooch. Stephen Leibowitz saying, I guess Terry finally said, screw those bastards. I'm going out for a beer or 12. Andy's here. Good afternoon, Andy. Dimitri. Tizzlemain. Tiz won his buy-in back. Hey, it's always a plus. Beats the alternative. But you like to finish a little higher than that. Let me yell at the dog real quick. Hey, Joker, stop that. Chill. Nobody needs to hear you. Anyway, 5-gamer to talk about. Interesting mix of pitchers to work with for a short slate. We've got an opener-follower situation. We've got a primo option at the top of the board in Paul Skeens. He's going in this first game for the Pirates. He's got the Reds checked down to 3.27 implied runs, and then on their side, it's Nick Lodolo facing the Pirates, 3.80 implied total. Looks like we go to either one of those pitchers. Obviously, Skeens at the top of the board is the jewel of the slate, the thing that you want to pay up for. But Lodolo's no slouch. He could definitely get through that Pirates team. Reasonably low totals on both sides of that one. Angels are going to be facing Ryan Burda open, and then followed by Ryan Yarbrough for the Blue Jays. And then on the mound for the Angels, it's Griff Canning. So we've got a 3.97 implied total for Los Angeles that feels honestly a little bit light. And then a pretty beefy 4.62 implied total for Toronto that definitely feels pretty on the nose against Canning. One of the pitchers that we tend to target pretty aggressively. Gives up a ton of home runs, and then we've got to see what we can work out as far as sequencing and everything goes for the Blue Jays to capitalize on the home run plus opportunity. But I think at least a little bit of power should be in the cards for the Blue Jays today. Phillies and the Braves, 3.76 implied total for Philadelphia. They're going up against Spencer Schwellenbach, who's pretty good, and then the Braves coming back on the other side at 3.83 implied runs. They're facing Christopher Sanchez, who's also pretty good. So another spot where I think we can draw some pitchers. A little bit less comfortable, just considering the teams that play in that one. But the Braves greatly diminished. A lot of strikeouts available in that lineup. Sanchez not the best for finding strikeouts. He's more of a suppress offense kind of a pitcher, but capable enough. And against that team, there should be a couple bonus strikeouts in play. And then Schwellenbach's just good and fairly high strikeout in general. But obviously that Phillies lineup is pretty threatening. So just that to worry about as far as that one goes. But I do think both of those pitchers are more on the board than those offenses are today. Another Spencer is on the mound for Houston. We've got Spencer Arrighetti facing the Orioles, 4.45 implied total for the O's. Arrighetti went on a pretty good run of starts, gave up 4 in his last one, struck out just 5, hit a few big strikeout totals, had some low run totals in those games. He's good, not great. Tough matchup against the Orioles, and I don't love targeting them when they're getting that pretty juicy total there, one of the higher marks on the entire slate. But Arrighetti's good enough on the right day that you can get through that, and he's probably going to be at low ownership. Corbin Burns on the mound for the Orioles, a little bit more straightforward, 3.65. Not an easy matchup for him either against the low strikeout, pretty good Astros, but it's a changed version of that Astros lineup overall, and Burns is pretty good. Hasn't been completely sharp this year, did give up 8 earned runs to Boston in his most recent start, but very capable of giving you 6 innings in basically every start this year. He's given you at least 6, except for that most recent one. He only went 4. 3 starts back, he went 5. And then every start all the way back to April before that was at least 6 innings. So at least great depth, significant strikeout upside, even against the Astros for Burns. Definitely on the table. And then the last game, the Mets at the Padres, 3.41 implied total for New York. They're going to be facing Dylan Cease. And then it's Luis Severino, who seems pretty targetable going for the Mets, 4.18 implied total on the Pod side. A little bit of ballpark working against there, a little bit of the up and down nature of that team, but Severino is definitely gettable. So I like the Padres maybe a little bit more than that run total might imply. That said, Sevy did go 9 in his most recent start. Solid little shutout against the Marlins. 4-hitter, 8 strikeouts. Very good game. So he's got upside, he's got ability, but the Pods are very low strikeout against. There's a lot of options. I mean, we've got talent on the pitching board up at the top. The 2 Spencers are pretty good. It's just the attackable situation of Canning, Severino, and then the opener-follower situation with the 2 Ryans. But it's a pretty decent pitching slate. Skeens is very clear-cut at the top, 10-9.99 across sites. Fairly priced. $800 difference between him and Dylan Cease on the FanDuel slate versus just a $500 difference, a little bit closer on DraftKings. Skeens is on another level, but Cease is like, he is Paul Skeens from a few years ago, right? He's just been here for a little while, but there's a lot of shared talent between those two. There's a lot of similar high strikeout upside. The ability to dominate over 7-8 innings is in both of those guys. And you can throw Corbin Burns right into that mix as well. So it's 3 very, very strong options off the top, just in a variety of matchups. That Reds lineup is improved as far as the strikeout rate goes, but some of it is a little bit deceptive around the hitters who are actually low strikeout. It matters less against Paul Skeens. The Mets are pretty good. Cease is probably the most challenged between the 3, but he's easily good enough to just absolutely dominate that Mets lineup too. Burns against Houston, they're also good, but again, it's a changing version of that lineup, so we'll take a look at what's there, what he's actually going to be facing today. But in a vacuum, it's not the easiest matchup. He's equally high-end to Skeens and Cease, though. I mean, it's a very solid top 3. Then you get to Sanchez, who again can pick up some additional strikeout upside against that Braves team. He's projecting pretty competitively with the top 3 guys on the board, and obviously there's a giant price difference. 81, pretty fair on FanDuel. 7,000 on DraftKings makes him easy to reach. He's going to have to be popular at that level. I just think taking a solid mix of him with these top 3 guys and letting those chips fall where they may as far as the combinations. You could even go so far as to say, like, I'm just going to run some crunches with only those top 4 pitchers to make sure you get a nice big spread of those pitchers. And the reason I like doing things like that, where I'm blocking off specific combinations, is so that, if you run the full board, if you run everybody all at the same time, you will, of course, with these guys being the top projected guys and with Sanchez being priced the way he is, you'll come up with a bunch of lineups that are combinations of these 4 pitchers and those 3 with him most specifically. But the reason I like to do it and then run versions where it's only allowed to get to those kind of combinations, or by the opposite side of that coin, take those guys out and only combine some of the lower owned pitchers who are all very talented. It just creates a bigger spread. If you do it with the full slate of pitchers and you run, say, 500 lineups, you'll land on it a few times in there and you'll get to them with, top bats X, top bats Y put together, but you won't get, 15 different versions of each of those combinations. You won't get as many as you would if you reduce the available population, run a few crunches, and then you put it back. You drop everybody back in, and all your main crunches, your main lineup builds are with the full pool. But you expand the ability to, where other people might not be running enough to get to a ton of different examples of those different combinations, and that's where winners come from. So, I really do think it's worth doing a lot of the time. And on a slate like this, where there's so much spread, but there's such a good high end, I think it's definitely worth doing. Lodolo on the other side of the Pittsburgh game definitely has the ability to beat that Pittsburgh team, 8,800, 8,000. He's very fairly priced as well for the ceiling. Schwelly against Philadelphia. Schwelly against Philly sounded weird coming out. Definitely has been pitching well enough to beat that team, but probably as far as the full board goes, the guys that you would want, both the Spencers are facing the biggest challenges against Philly and against Baltimore, respectively. Severino, I really start to question whether we want to go there against the Padres. Canning is a pretty hard no against the Blue Jays, and then I want nothing to do with the opener-follower situation on the Toronto side. So it's a pretty clear-cut board. You could probably get pretty different by going to Sevy, especially at 68 on DraftKings. That's affordable. He might actually pick up some popularity for that. 84 is going to be pretty uniquely low owned on the FanDuel slate, I would think. And that's it. That's a tiny little slate today. Anthony Taylor's here. Afternoon, buddy. Larry C says, last night I messed up my CSV, so I missed the Yankees game, but got it into by Toronto game, somehow made money. Nice. Always good to come out profitable when you've screwed things up. And believe me, I know. It's another benefit. I do not miss the frantically scrambling to fix a CSV or change when somebody scratches, or for NBA last minute lineup changes and everything for 150 lineups. Ugh. I'll get back to it someday, but I've just so much more been enjoying just, the limited lineups, the actually thinking about it, putting it together and everything. It's so much better. Better experience. Anyway, so here's Skeens at the top, 9,900 on DraftKings, 10-9 on the FanDuel slate. He's made 16 starts. He's got a 31.8% strikeout rate, 2.30 ERA with a 2.82 xFIP, a .97 WHIP, inducing a 12.8% swinging strike rate, 2.62% home runs on just 9.5 degrees of average launch, just 6.1% barrels. Very difficult to square him up, very difficult to avoid striking out against him. 6 innings last time out, gave up 2 earned on 3 hits, including a home run. Struck out 6, but walked 4, a little bit of inefficiency there. Game before that was against Seattle. Kind of a disappointing start, honestly, against Seattle. Game before that against the Dodgers, he went 6. He struck out 8, but he gave up 4 earned runs on 6 hits. Home run in that one as well. It's a little bit of, I won't call it a downturn, but maybe just, the innings piling up on him at this point. Almost 100 innings pitched in the show. Maybe the arm is getting a little bit tired. I don't want to say we're seeing cracks around the edges or anything, but he has given up a couple of runs in each of his recent starts. He had been pitching a little bit deeper into games through July. He was given a 7-8 innings. Now we're back to around 6. I think they probably keep him capped around 6 unless he's really, really rolling. I don't really worry about the upside. It's just, there is a very, very big tax for the name, for the star caliber pitcher. But I don't think we need to worry yet. Maybe as we get into September a little further, it'll become a little bit more of a, hey, let's keep an eye on what they're doing with his innings. Let's keep an eye on, what the runs against look like and what the outcomes look like. Right now, I think we're fine. Good strikeout opportunity. This version of the Reds lineup at 23.1% strikeouts. Dom Smith, not available on either site. Obviously, didn't have time to get him included in the salary sheet, I guess, or maybe DK updated. FanDuel doesn't do that kind of thing. They've also got Ahmed Rosario, like I mentioned, in the 5 spot in this lineup now. He's fairly low strikeout, 17.4%. Dom is at 23.4%. He will be in the actual lineup. So whether he's there for DFS purposes or not matters less than he's a good target for Skeens. And then the bottom, Noah Marte, Luke Maile, both in the 30s. Ellie, obviously superstar caliber talent, but 30% strikeouts. So there's a lot of good targets for Skeens in there, and I don't really concern myself with the TJ Friedels, Ahmed Rosario, Santiago Espinal stretch through the middle of the lineup. For one thing, Skeens' stuff is ridiculous enough that he can absolutely blow away those hitters anyway. But for 2, those are 3 fairly non-threatening hitters to be the low strikeout guys. Spencer Steer, Jonathan India give you a little bit more up top, but overall, Skeens should dominate this team. Lodolo on the other side, pretty good numbers. 4.55 ERA is not great, but a 3.95 ERA underneath that indicates that he's gotten a little bit unlucky. He's been about a half a run better than what the ERA looks like. Nearly a 24% strikeout rate, just a 7.2% walk rate over his 110 2/3 in 20 starts. Pretty good output as far as the home runs allowed. 2.75% home runs is nothing. 11.5 degree average launch means it ball's reasonably low trajectory. Not directly into the ground every time, but reasonably good trajectory. 8.4% barrels, a few mistakes in there. Definitely doesn't get help from his home ballpark as far as power goes. Little 105 rating by stuff plus, 11.5% swinging strikes. He's a solid pitcher, solid left-handed pitcher to throw at this team. They do have some decent right-handed bats like Brian Reynolds, Joey Barton, and Brian De La Cruz. Reynolds a switch hitter, but will be obviously taking his plate appearances on the right side. There's some good bats in that lineup, but O'Neill Cruz, their probably best power hitter, is a lefty bat that probably is, I believe anyway, still not getting his against lefties. Let me double check that. Where's O'Neill Cruz at these days? Yep, 212, 246, 407 this year. Does have a 195 ISO in the split, but just a 76 WRC plus, 5 home runs. Strikeouts are around the same, 32% against lefties, 31.6 against righties. So yeah, a little bit diminished for their probably their best power bat there. Then they stick in a couple other guys who are medium caliber right-handed hitters that do well from time to time against lefties, but not really threatening. And then a weak bottom end. So Lodolo's got the opportunity to succeed. He can exploit this team for some strikeouts, 24.5% for the collective confirmed lineup here for the Pirates. So he's got pretty solid upside on both sites. 8,800 on FanDuel, just 8,000 on DraftKings. Definitely puts him in play. I don't love the 8,800. He is capable of getting the 6 innings, getting the quality start for us. Just 2 1/3 in his most recent one. That was against Kansas City. He melted down, gave up 8 earned runs, struck out just 2, walked 2, gave up a home run, faced just 17 hitters. Start before that, though, pitched into the 6th, went 5 1/3, 3 earned runs on 3 hits, struck out 4 and walked 3. Not a great start, not a terrible start. The one before that on August 6th, faced Miami at Miami. Solid opportunity to pitch well, struck out 7, walked 3. 2 earned on 2 hits, went 6, quality start, got the win. That's not bad. If you could pick that off today, and the Pirates are not a completely incomparable opponent, it's not a bad opportunity. Strikeout high for this season was 11, but that came all the way back on April 29th. First start of the year, he struck out 10 against the White Sox. The 11 came against the Padres at San Diego. It's actually a really impressive start. So either pitcher, more on the board, I think, than the bats. If I'm drawing bats from this one, I'm probably favoring the Pirates. I really don't see a need to attack Paul Skeens with the Reds. It's there. It won't be popular. It's an angle into the slate, I guess. But it's pretty low end. They're carrying a 3.27 implied total for a reason today. But if you're going there, Jonathan India from the top of the lineup, still been pretty effective up there. 356 on base, creating runs 10% better than average. Gives you the counting stat upside. He's up to 12 home runs, 11 steals. Ellie is a superstar, but a high strikeout superstar. So not a great matchup for Ellie against a super high strikeout pitcher. But if he connects, he can definitely take Skeens over the wall as well. It'll be fun to watch. 13.4% barrels, 45.7% hard hits for Ellie this season. 22 home runs, 60 stolen bases, 231 ISO, 127 WRC plus. It's pretty tremendous. On a short slate, top end shortstop. What are our shortstops? We got him. Nothing to worry about there. Turner from this one. And then Lindor and Gunnar. So we've got like four good shortstops, 4 like high end shortstops out of the 10 teams. Ellie will definitely be out of that group 4th out of 4 as far as the ownership goes. The ceiling is similar to those other guys. It's just a really tough spot against Skeens. So if you're going to Reds, just know what you're doing. Obviously you're taking an angle against a very popular pitcher. Not the best team to do it with. The top end is okay as far as on base goes, though. You can get enough out of this that you can probably make it work. Spencer Steer, 51-32, still has the second base eligibility on FanDuel. 19 homers, 21 steals, 196 ISO, 106 WRC+. Solid little season out of him. He's not exceptional, but he's good. Coming up on a 2020 season. TJ Friedl at 43,000 is not mispriced. 10 home runs and 206 chances. Ugly slash line, 99 WRC+. Has a little bit of pop in the bat. I talked about it yesterday, despite making poor contact. Still manages to find some home run upside. Needs to get on base more regularly. Uses speed, though, a little bit. And just a weird bat in the cleanup spot. I continue to think that's the wrong spot to have him hit. But everybody after him in this lineup, it kind of falls apart as you go down the lineup now. Rosario, 33-27, 4 positions on FanDuel, second in outfield on DraftKings. He's playable there. Over 287 plate appearances this year, slashing 305, 331, 415, a 114 WRC+. Pretty solid numbers. I did not remember him having that good a season. It's weird that he's bouncing around like he is. That's actually a really good little season. That's a solid slash line over 287 opportunities, and he's a guy that was a very high-end prospect not too long ago. He's only 28. Going to be 29. He had 2 very good years in Cleveland. I didn't realize I didn't remember his slash line was that strong. I'm intrigued. Santiago Espinal, 29-26. Intrigued to remember that he's in this lineup going forward, not necessarily today against Paul Skeens. Santiago Espinal is just a mix and match infielder. Gives you 8 home runs, 8 stolen bases in his 274 plate appearances so far, but not a very good bat at all. Low strikeout, low walk, so he does tend to put the ball in play, but again, doesn't really hit it all that hard. Dom Smith not available. Nolan Marte, not good so far in the show. 4 home runs, 5 steals, a 47 WRC+, entirely skippable at the bottom, but if you're playing a bunch of Reds for some reason, you obviously mix them in. Luke Maile, 23-22, has 2 home runs and 2 steals and 128 plate appearances, and congratulations to him. Pirates lineup, a little bit better of an opportunity facing Nick Lodolo. You get IKF off the top. What's IKF doing lefty-lefty? He's really just here as a back control, base hit kind of a guy. 261, 316, 330 against same-handed pitching. Just a 12.5% strikeout rate. 87 WRC plus in the split. .068 ISO. Getting more power against righties. Wait a minute. Is he righty? Why do I have him as a lefty? I'm just realizing that. That display handedness is wrong. In the back end of the model, it's fine. But somewhere along the way, I switched up his handedness in the display. Weird. All right, so forget that. Forget the lefty thing. He's facing a lefty. He's having a decent year. 280, 324, 412, 108 WRC plus. Like I was saying, he's just here to put the ball in play. 2.5% barrels, 26.3% hard hits. Very much like a Santiago Espinal, TJ Friedl on the other side. He's found some success. He's had years in the past, few years before the Yankees acquired him, or the year before the Yankees acquired him a few years back. He led the AL in singles. That's what he does. So as a table setter, it's not the worst option in the world. Brian Reynolds, switch hitter, 5,100, 3,200, 19 home runs on the season, a 178 ISO, 123 WRC+, 9.8% barrels and 46.7% hard hits. Pretty premium contact. Very high-end season out of Reynolds. He's not a superstar, but he's been their best player for a number of years now. He's very easy to get to in the outfield. Not unfairly priced, 5,132. Joey Bart having a good year, over 206 plate appearances. We're up to 12 home runs at 239 ISO, 139 WRC+. 12.2% barrels. Joey Bart is hitting for power this year pretty significantly. And the slash line is good. 277, 350, 516. That's a very good catcher bat in the 3 spot. Just, a matter of the matchup, but not a bad spot for him. Brian De La Cruz, 35-27, another righty with power, 18 home runs, a 150 ISO, not great results in terms of the extra base hits. The home run total's fine for a player like him. That's around where you would expect him to be. 10% home runs, 41.4, or 10% barrels, 41.4% hard hits so far this year. A decent enough bat to mix into Pirate stacks. Not really a reason to get excited about them and go to them, but a playable part in stacks. O'Neill Cruz, like I mentioned, 18 home runs, 15 stolen bases, their best power bat, 17.3% barrels and 53.6% hard hits on the year, but struggles in the split. Connor Joe, 34-26, mix and match caliber guy down lineup, 10 points below average for run creation, but a righty bat that they'll throw at the lefty. Triolo, second base, third base for a cheap price on DraftKings, 4 positions on FanDuel for 2,300. He's at the Mendoza line, just a 286 on base, 64 WRC plus with 6 homers and 5 steals. At best, he's mix and match from a bad spot in the lineup against a good pitcher. Not a great opportunity. Yasmani Grandal, no real quality. 5 home runs on the season, a 135 ISO, 27-22. If you're going to the bottom of the Pirates lineup for a catcher, it's a bit of a stretch. I greatly prefer some of the other options. You've also got Joey Bart hitting third in that lineup. Greatly prefer Joey Bart over Yasmani Grandal. Every now and then you can find good contact. 41.5% hard hits on the year and just 16.8% strikeouts. So he's moderately capable, but a 206, 253, 341, a 63 WRC plus, that tells a lot of what the actual story is. And then Michael A., big disappointment this year. 4 home runs, 10 steals, and 273 chances. I really liked him to do stuff at the bottom of this lineup for us coming into the season, kind of like he did last year. 197, 257, 287 with a 51 WRC plus, ain't it? Paul Skeens, Nick Lodolo, Pirates bats, and then Reds bats are there if you want them. They'll be low owned. Larry says, IKF is righty. How can we trust your model now? Yeah, like I said, the model on all the other stuff knows. This is pulling off of the display, so it should be fine. I'll go in and I'll double check it after the show, though. We caught somebody else at the beginning of the year that was in there. That's what comes from this this player ID tab. We're down to the 3000s. The top of this file is actually, I don't remember where the hell I got this. Somebody put this all together years ago. It was all these different sources and what the names they were using at that time was. This is something I downloaded somewhere. I have no idea whose it was. Pros, RotoWire, FanDuel, DraftKings, Razzball, Fantrax, RotoWire, etc., etc., etc. And then where it probably got screwed up is in the bats throws. These 2 different columns, once I got down into as I was adding over the years, once we lose the stuff there. So I've added roughly 800 players to this over the years. And somewhere along the way, like down here, I lost track of which column 30 or 31 was bats and throws. So I just started putting the same handedness in for both guys. So it's probably in there somewhere that we lost it as far as the display goes. But I'll fix it. Griff Canning, just a target for bats. Ryan Yarbrough and Ryan Burr pitching for the Blue Jays. Really, I don't think you go to pitching at all in this one. The Blue Jays, as mediocre as they've been through the season, they do have some good power bats to throw at Canning. He's got his major home run issues. He's got his just mediocrity issues, only a 16.6% strikeout rate. So even for $5,000 on DraftKings, it's a really challenging spot. I don't know that there's actually opportunity there. Last time out, 3 strikeouts, a walk, over 4 1/3, gave up 7 earned to Atlanta, 2 home runs. Went 7 against Washington, allowed 4 earned runs, 1 homer, 8 hits, 0 strikeouts over 7 innings. Had an 8 strikeout game against the Mets, 4 walks, an earned run, 2 runs scored on 3 hits over 5 innings. That's his best recent game. 6 runs allowed to Colorado. He's just been bad. Every now and then he can find a little bit of upside, and he was a better pitcher last year. Last year, 25.9% strikeouts, a 4.32 ERA, a 3.82 xFIP. Still had the home run issues, but wasn't bad. This year, it's been the home run issues, and he's just bad. So I think you're taking Blue Jays bats. One of the highest implied totals on the board, 4.61. And I think Angels bats are at least in play. This is what they look like again, or this is what they look like against Yarbs. A couple of 7s in there for the home run upside. A couple of okay projections for your very cheap prices across both sides. If we switch it out, against the opener, dips a little bit, but not really consequentially. The guys that were in the 7s are still 6s and 7s. Projections around the same. So not a bad spot necessarily for the Angels. They're just a bad team filled with bad players. So, sometimes you can get opportunity out of that. That's what we're looking for a lot of the time with DFS is opportunity. A bad team can beat mediocre pitching. So Taylor Ward off the top, 4,000, 2,900, 16 home runs on the year, 159 ISO, 97 WRC+, has been in a big tailspin for a while now, but still does have a good amount of right-handed power. 12.5% barrels and 43.4% hard hits. Not a bad option to lead off an Angel stack, and he's very cheap for what the ceiling actually is. 7.03 leads the team in the home run model. Zach Neto, just behind him in the home run model, has 19 on the season, 22 stolen bases, 202 ISO, and a 121 WRC+. On a day where, we're short on, again, 4-star caliber shortstops to work with, that gives us 6 guys that we consider either, or at least, I guess, 6 guys that's mediocre to middle of the board. And Neto's probably floating up toward the top of that pool of shortstops. He falls behind the 4 elite guys on this slate, but not bad. Nolan Shanuel for 36-27, 12 home runs, a 348 on base. Good correlated scoring option, 107 WRC+. You can fit him in at first base for 36-27. It's not a terrible option. If you can put them together with a team where you're not worried about the corner spot, you can just take some correlated scoring out of corner and make up some power in, say, the outfield or wherever. He's not bad. And against this level of pitching, seems like the kind of player that can succeed. Just, again, a back control, get on base kind of a player. Anthony Rendon, totally skippable even if he's hitting cleanup today. Forgot to check if the lineups were out. Lineups are out. He is hitting cleanup. Totally skippable. If you're going to the Angels and you're stacking this team up a bunch, he's obviously on the board. He only costs 3,400, 2,500 on FanDuel. Very low strikeout rate. I'll give him that much. A little bit of a walk rate at 8.6%, but I mean, he's not really hitting the ball very hard at all. No home runs this year in 186 plate appearances. A .043 ISO. 67 WRC+. He's been really, really bad. Mickey Moniak, 28-25, 8 home runs and 6 stolen bases. He's also been pretty bad. He's just cheap. You can plug him into an outfield spot just to fill out a lineup because he's hitting 5th today, but not a very good player. Joe Adell gives you a lot more upside. Not any more consistency, possibly less consistency than Moniak, but he's got a bigger ceiling. 18 home runs, 14 steals, and 403 plate appearances this year. Costs just 33 on DraftKings, 28 on FanDuel. Easy enough to reach, 6.89 in the home run model, puts him 3rd behind Ward and Neto off the top. He's probably my 3rd highest priority Angels bat. It's probably 1-2 off the top, or 1, then 2, and then Joe Adell, and then probably Shanuel, if I'm just putting them in order. Matt Thays at catcher, 2,600 on both sides, 2 home runs, decent triple slash over his 123 plate appearances. I guess effective enough that you can consider him if you're stacking up a bunch of Angels and you just want to grab a cheap catcher. He's hitting the ball fairly hard when he's made contact with it this year. Last year in 307 plate appearances, hit 9 home runs on pretty similar and pretty good contact. Not entirely skippable as a catcher. He's in play. Nico at the dead min at first base on DraftKings, 2,100 on FanDuel. We're 0 for 13 now, minus 43 WRC+. But as we looked at the other day, 17 home runs in 335 AAA plate appearances this season in the Red Sox organization, and then added another 2 after coming to Los Angeles in 48 plate appearances. So 19 AAA home runs with around like a 260 combined ISO across those 2 spots. Pretty good young power bat. So I think you can at least consider mixing him in for the dead men. Not a bad lefty option late in the lineup. You just got to hope he comes up with his first hit and does something productive for a change. Michael Stefanich, 27-24, mix and match caliber option over 82 plate appearances. Top of the Blue Jays, they're also in. Looks pretty similar to what we've seen recently. So we had George Springer off the top at just 45,000. Not bad pricing for Springer. He's up to 17 home runs, 13 stolen bases. We've been seeing a little bit of life out of him lately. 164 ISO and a 97 WRC+. Even by the end of September, it's not going to look like a good George Springer season, but it might look like a better season than what we were tracking for, just 4 weeks ago. So maybe pull things together. Definitely in play for me if I'm considering Blue Jays, and I am definitely against Griff Canning. Springer is a pretty high priority bat in this lineup. Dalton Varsho, 4,000-2,900. A lot more mix and match, but he is left-handed, and lefties mash against Griff Canning. So probably a higher priority than I would normally have Dalton Varsho, but still a guy who's very capable of just giving you zeros in that lineup. 26% strikeouts is the highest strikeout rate among the top 5 hitters in this Blue Jays lineup. He's hit 15 home runs, stolen 10 bases, has a 194 ISO, just a 99 WRC+. He's not completely inept at the plate, but he's not great. It's also, though, he's not high priced. So it's easy enough to get to in a spot where he should have a good opportunity to succeed. So he's a big part of Blue Jays stacks today. I just don't really love the player. 55.39 feels a little bit cheap for Vladdy on the DraftKings slate. Against Griff Canning, a guy giving up a 4.15% home run rate, 90.9 miles an hour of exit velo, 42.2% hard hits this season. I think we can get to Vladdy Guerrero here. 14.3% barrels, 55.8% hard hits for Vladdy. 26 home runs, a 232 ISO, 164 WRC+. Harwitz is a good option today as well. He's not the power hitter that Dalton Varsho is. He's got 4 home runs on the season, but just a .094 ISO, 40.3% hard hits. He does strike the ball well with the bat, and he might maintain a 40+% hard hit rate, but he's not really a home run hitter. He's going to hit for average. He's going to get on base. Oh, excuse me, my eyes jumped down. 36.6% hard hits. That's more accurate to who he is. First and second base eligible for 3,900, 2,800 on FanDuel, same positioning. Definitely in play for me, but the expectations are more correlated scoring, get on base 3 or 4 times against Griff Canning, and be a part of somebody else's big scoring events. Expecting big home run output out of Harwitz, maybe not exactly what we're looking for. I also said 4 home runs. He's got 8 in his 252 plate appearances. 167 ISO, 124 WRC+. I jumped down a spot to Alejandro Kirk's stats when I was reading those off. But still, emphasis on not exactly a power bat, even with the 8 home runs on the board. Alejandro Kirk, 3,400, 2,600, 4 home runs on the season, a .094 ISO, and 85 WRC+, a mix and match quality catcher. Will Wagner, 25-26, first base on FanDuel, second base, probably more interesting positioning on DraftKings. You don't have the positional issues and doubling things up with Vladdy like you do on FanDuel. 25 pretty good plate appearances so far, carrying a 182 WRC+. Interesting young player. Ernie Clement, low strikeout, low walk, a lot of balls in play. They're not exactly hard hit, but he does have 9 home runs and 8 stolen bases and 321 chances. 157 ISO, a respectable 101 WRC+. He can get involved. Third base and shortstop for a cheap price on DraftKings. I prefer him at second base on FanDuel for just 24. Not bad there, although probably more often than not just putting Spencer Harwitz in that spot and taking Vladdy first. But you can, like I illustrated the other day, obviously go third base, second base, or excuse me. How would I do that? Third base, second base? No, I want Clement at second, whatever. You can figure out a way to put them all together. You've also got the util spot to work with. Joey Loperfido, 28-25, 3 home runs on the season, 3 stolen bases. A little bit of power for sure, but just hasn't found any kind of consistent footing in the major leagues, and getting opportunities more with the Blue Jays now than he was with the Astros, but still a little bit limited by just the 173 plate appearances all season. Leo Jimenez at the bottom, 23-24, mix and match quality guy. 3 home runs over 118 plate appearances, a 175 ISO. Created runs 5% better than average so far. Fills the middle infield okay for a very cheap price, but you've got a lot of those options in here, like I was just struggling with. Blue Jays bats, Angels bats. Really no pitching. I don't think Griff Canning's worth even rolling the 5,000 on DraftKings. These Blue Jays are just, even if he does have a decent day as far as keeps their run total somewhat low and somewhat managed, maybe avoids the home run for a change, they're very low strikeout, 20.8%, and that's pushed up by Loperfido and Leo Jimenez in small samples at the bottom. All the guys up top, except for Dalton Varsho, are very low strikeout. So even on a good day, I just don't see any kind of ceiling for Canning. For 5,000, you don't need a tremendous ceiling, but you need a little something. I don't know. Big stretch on a deep pitching slate. Phillies and Braves, we've got these lineups already. Oh, I know you weren't serious about IKF, Larry. I'm pretty sure I laughed. So somebody mentioned the price on Chris Sanchez. That's what I was just looking for in the chat. Digital Buddha mentioned price on Chris Sanchez is enticing, but man, he just gets blown up every time on the road. I'm going to agree on the price thing. I haven't really looked into the home road stuff. I don't particularly care about the about home road. Let's see. I do have the game log. Last time on the road against Arizona, he gave up 7 earned runs, struck out just 4, walked 2. But the start before that was against the Dodgers, also on the road in Los Angeles. He just gave up 1 earned over 6 innings on 5 hits. Only struck out 2, but he definitely didn't get blown up. 2 earned runs on the road over 5 2/3 against Pittsburgh, going back to the end of July. A bad 7-run start against against the Cubs at Wrigley, over just 4 innings. I would say the road results, I don't have the exact splits. They're probably not as strong as the home results. I'll definitely say you've got that right, but I don't think they're tragic either. Most of his blow-ups have come on the road, but he hasn't gotten blown up that many times. Is probably the right way to say that. What I like about Sanchez, very, very good at keeping the ball on the ground. Very, very good at limiting home runs. And what do these Braves do? They hit home runs. So if you could take that away from them, this is a team that has, for the confirmed lineup, a dead-on 300 on-base percentage this year. And if you knock Marcell Ozuna out of that, it's everybody else at 289. So if you're keeping the ball down like he does, 1.6 degree average launch angle, just 5% barrels, elite at 33.6% hard hits allowed, 87.4 miles an hour of exit velo, and then just absolutely spectacular, just 0.86% home runs, over 140 in a third innings, 24 starts. He's given up what? He gave up a homer in his last start, gave up 1 to the Yankees on July 31st, 5 all year to 580 hitters. That's pretty good. So, considering he has that upside, and then he's facing a Braves team with a 23.5% strikeout rate that's bolstered a little bit by a non-threatening Gio Urshela, and a potentially improved, since he's been with the Braves and liking playing baseball again, Whit Merrifield. But everybody else through that lineup and all of their threatening hitters are gettable for strikeouts. Sanchez is not a strikeout pitcher, 18.6% on the season. 3.46 ERA with a 3.25 xFIP, a 5.9% walk rate. What I'm saying is, if you take the home runs away, if he's not going to be walking guys, this team's already bad at getting on base anyway, so they're not really likely to be sequencing against him. There's nothing but upside and strikeouts left. 7,000, 8,100, very, very fairly priced. I believe in him around those medians, and I do think there's a ceiling with a little bit of bonus K upside. Just 4 strikeouts in each of his last 2, but the most recent start was a complete game against Washington. 2-hitter, give up 1 run on a solo home run, 4 strikeouts, no walks. Strikeout high for the season was 10. That came all the way back in April. He's got a pair of 8 strikeout games. He's got a 9 strikeout game, a pair of 7 strikeout games. So he's got the ability against teams like this to bolster that strikeout rate a little bit. On the other side, Schwellenbach, 85.93, fairly priced for as well as he's pitching. 4.04 ERA with a much better 3.19 xFIP. I don't think people necessarily appreciate how good Schwelly actually is. 27.5% strikeouts on a monster 14.3% swinging strike rate, 31.1% CSW. We'll see a few guys in a minute that have similar strike throwing numbers like that, but this is ace caliber strike throwing numbers. Like, no bones about it. It's just very clear. He's also just walking 4.5%. If he keeps this up, he's going to be a very high-end pitcher very, very soon. He already has been, but he's just going to keep on getting better, and he's probably going to get some notice. Did I not put his game log in here? I might have skipped his game log by accident. Oh, no, there he is. Last time out, 8 strikeouts against the Angels. Start before that, 7 Ks against the Rockies at Coors Field. Just 2 runs allowed on 6 hits over 6 innings. Nice stretch of long starts. Outside of the 5-inning game against the Angels in his most recent one, he had gone at least 6 in, 6 straight? 6 straight, 3 of them 7 innings, 3 of them 6 innings. Only 1 of them was not a quality start. He also had strikeout totals of 11 against the Mets, 10 against the Marlins, 8 against the Cardinals in that stretch. It's been very, very good. Facing a Phillies team with a 22.3% strikeout rate, definitely more threatening than the Angels, the Rockies, the Marlins, even the Mets probably, the Cards, the Padres. Against this same Phillies team back on July 6th, though. Nothing predictive about this, but it's a data point. 6 innings, just 1 earned run on 7 hits, and he struck out 6. And that was, half a dozen starts ago. More. So he's had a little bit more time to stretch out, develop, find his form, find what works in the show. I like the upside at 85.93. I think he's very, very much in play. Just a little bit more threatened than some of the pitchers at the top of the board. If you're taking shares of Phillies, it's not a terrible idea, especially if you're drawing shares of Schwellenbach on the mound and you're building a ton of lineups. You can hedge that spot a little bit by drawing some Phillies. You can see both Schwartz and Harper are over the magic number for home run power. I actually made Harper the home run pick of the day at 11.09. Schwellenbach not invulnerable to power. This isn't a bad launch angle. It's not a bad barrel rate at all. That's a good barrel rate to be allowing. But a little bit of hard hits, 39.5% hard hits, 3.24% home runs. So he's been a little bit gettable for power. Home run in his last one. 2 home run games in this stretch, and a 3 home run game was his worst game. So the Phils are showing a little bit of upside there. You've got Trey Turner in between the 2 power bats. 28 home runs for Schwartz, 26 for Harper. 14 homers and 14 steals for Trey Turner. All 3 of those guys creating runs ridiculously above average. That's 35% above average on average for the top 3 hitters. Nicky Castellanos in the cleanup spot today, 4,200, 3,300. Obviously, he's not Alec Bohm, but he is a bat with some power in it. 16 home runs on the season, a 167 ISO, 99 WRC+. Not as consistent as he maybe used to be, but still has the pretty decent upside on the right day. No issues with playing. He's cheap enough. He helps, specifically on DraftKings. That 42 brings that 4-man average down to 5,200, and you get the 3 stars in with it. On FanDuel, it's a little less dramatic. Just lowers it to 37.50. If you include Stott in that, obviously it comes down even further, 49.60 with him. I would probably lean Real Muto, get the catcher, and then this stretch of players. But Phils are very highly stackable on any given slate. Stott at 4,000 is not a bad option at second base. I would just probably rather, if I was stacking Phillies on DraftKings, take my catcher here. But 9 home runs, 25 steals from Stott this season. 85 WRC plus isn't great. Needs to get on base a little bit more consistently so he can use his skill set. Not exactly crushing the ball when he makes contact. Probably here in the 5 spot, more to reset the table than he is to knock these guys in. But capable of doing either thing on the right day. Romuto for 43, 3,000, 252, 313, 381. 6 points below average for run creation and just 8 home runs and a 129 ISO over 313 plate appearances. Disappointing output, but the contact is there. 8.5% barrels, 44.8% hard hits. Striking out and walking around the same. So I'm not really concerned about the lack of extreme output, and especially in any given slate sense when he's this cheap. If he was like 5,000, like 3,500, it would be more concerning. But with him this cheap, it's easy enough to get to, and he's still got big upside at the position. Brandon Marsh for just $33.29 hits the ball extremely hard. 8.9% barrels, 47.5% hard hits. He's a high strikeout player, but he also draws walks, more of a 3 true outcomes guy. 317 on base, 12 home runs, 14 steals, a 101 ISO, or 101 WRC+. Very, very playable late lineup piece. Lefty bat against a righty, not a bad option. Weston Wilson for $41.27 has given you 50 very good plate appearances so far. Not sure that it completely continues, but I think you can mix and match your way there. That said, I probably prefer Brandon Marsh for a lot less on DraftKings. On FanDuel, where Marsh is 200 more, makes it a little bit closer. You also get multi-position out of Wilson on FanDuel. And then Johan Rojas just here to play defense. Steals the occasional base, but doesn't really get on base enough to support a DFS spot. If you're building a bunch of fills, or if you find yourself short by $100 of getting to Weston Wilson, let's say on FanDuel, short by 200 of getting to Brandon Marsh, that's when you can maybe mix in a share or two of Johan Rojas. Every now and then you get something from him. On the Braves side, Michael Harris, 43,000, 6 home runs, 8 steals, 79 WRC+. Kind of disappointing numbers over 311 plate appearances, but a lot of ability. We've seen him for a while last year kind of scuffle along. He's also dealt with some injuries over the last couple of years, but there's a lot of ability there. So it's kind of one of those just any given slate type upside plays. 4,300, 3,000 is not a bad price for even this version of Harris, and we know he's got a lot more to offer than what we've seen. Whit Merrifield, like we looked at yesterday, has been on a little bit of a tear over the last 2-3 weeks since joining this team. Hitting second now, 3,400, 2,500. Still falls into more the mix and match caliber bin. He's been that player for most of his career, but it's nice to see a little bit more output out of him. Once upon a time, he was reasonable for mid-range power and a few stolen bases along the way. This season, 4 home runs, 16 steals, 18% worse than average for run creation over his 251 chances. But again, seems a lot happier getting a regular shot here in Atlanta and performing a lot better lately. Marcell Ozuna for $56.38 has 37 home runs, a 285 ISO, a 166 WRC+. He's been a superstar for them this year. 5,600, not crazy on DraftKings. 3,800, not crazy on FanDuel. It's just, with Sanchez on the mound, it's not great. Although he does have a 13.9. That's how good he's been for power the last 2 years. 13.9 in the home run model. The only guy over 10. You got Matt Olson at 8.85. Everybody else 5 and change or below. So just not a great day for power, but if anybody's going to hit one out, Marcell is a pretty good candidate against Sanchez and his worm burners. Olson's having a disappointing year, as we've highlighted a few times, but again, in a vacuum, taking the name off of the jersey, that is still very good contact at 11.9% barrels, 46.5% hard hits, 190 ISO and a 100 WRC+, 21 homers. It's not a bad season for a lot of people in the league. It's just not what we expected from Matt Olson this year. So another guy with just massive any given slate upside, but facing the lefty who keeps the ball on the ground, it's not an ideal spot for Olson. Ramon Laureano still hits the ball hard. That's about all he does. 7 home runs and 186 chances on 13.2% barrels and 41.5% hard hits. Mix and match caliber player, but he's very high strikeout, 33.9%, fairly low walk. And again, he's exemplary of the diminished nature of this Braves lineup. Getting Whit Merrifield there, getting Ramon Laureano 5, Adam Duvall 6, Arcia, Murph, Gio Urshela down the bottom of the lineup. I mean, this is not the Braves that we've seen in recent seasons. So feeds the upside for Sanchez, even on the road, as we talked about. I'm happy to take the shares there, and I think he's very uniquely priced. So I'm probably going to have him in my lineup on FanDuel. I would suggest pretty big chunks of Sanchez at 7,000 on the DraftKings slate, even if he's popular. Going down that lineup, Adam Duvall, another source of potential strikeout upside for Sanchez, 30.8% so far this year. 10 home runs, a 137 ISO, not really hitting for power, not really delivering much of anything at 177, 239, 314, 47 points below average for run creation. Orlando Arcia's up to 12 home runs. He's got 5 to go to tie last year's output, but it's a way worse season even if he gets there. Sean Murphy hasn't been hitting as much this year, but has 7 home runs, a 158 ISO, and 191 plate appearances, and makes pretty good contact, made killer contact last season in his big year. Tons of ability from the catcher. He'd be still a top priority bat for me in a Braves lineup, but I'll say it again, diminished for power against Chris Sanchez. And then Gio Urshela is just not much of a hitter. Sanchez, Schwelly, Phillies, Braves, and the Braves really kind of a stretch, in my opinion. It's really only the Phillies that I'd be interested in bats-wise. 4:59, just 2 games to go. We're flying through this tiny slate. Brock Burke is opening for LA. I don't think that's going to matter at all. Is he on here? Nah, he's not on here. I don't think that matters at all. Oh, did they announce a pitch count? That'll change things. Let me see. I haven't seen anything announced. Where are you guys seeing that? Per Labs? I mean, through last handful of starts, 93 last time over 6 innings, 91 the time before that over 6 innings, 100 over 5 1/3, 101 over 6, 104 over 8 1/3. So, I mean, like I was saying, they had let him get out to 8 1/3 innings chasing that great game against St. Louis. That was the game where he threw 104 pitches. And then they started to kind of pull him back innings-wise, but the pitches are basically still there. I mean, again, 104 down to 101 and then 100. The innings just came down. He was a little bit less efficient with them. Walking a few more hitters since that deep start. But also faced some good teams in there. Oh, okay. You're saying Burke is the thing per Labs. Got it. Yeah. Gofis, not sure on that one. If you've got a source saying that he's actually restricted or that they put a number on it, let me know. I would love to actually have a number to work with there. I think, like I was saying when we talked about him, it's going to be more of a concern as we get into September. It's probably in the cards, though. Yeah, I mean, they're what? 14 out now? How far back of a wild card spot are they? Nah, they can't compete. Yeah, there's not going to be any reason really for them to push Skeens much further. They are 8 back of a wild card spot. Yeah, they're done. So we will definitely have that, and we'll have to be concerned about it. But I haven't seen it for today. So again, Gofis, if you've got a source there, let me know. Continuing on, Spencer Arrighetti facing the Baltimore Orioles, just really challenged here. But pitching well. I mean, if we're talking about Schwelly and how well he's pitching, got to talk about Arrighetti a little bit. 27.5% strikeout rate is similar. He walks more hitters at 10.7%. That's going to be an ongoing concern. That's where some of the inflated ERA at 5.20 is coming from. But a solid 4.08 xFIP. The 1.45 whip is also inflated by that walk rate, but 12.4% swinging strikes, nearly a 30% CSW. Very good numbers as far as strike throwing. He's run into a little bit of premium contact, and he's a fly ball pitcher. 17-degree average launch, 8.8% barrels, 40.9% hard hits, 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo is okay, but some of those other marks are over the line. 3.48% home runs. Sounds about right. You know, maybe a little bit of good luck, bad luck, one way or the other, but probably about right. That wouldn't shock me at all, Trey. Last I looked, which was about a week ago, that was down to Merrill was plus 105 and Skeens was like minus 160 or something like that. But that had come way down in terms of Merrill. So wouldn't shock me. You know, he's played the entire season and he's got really strong numbers. Where Skeens is dominated and everybody wants Skeens to be the next big thing, and I think he's very much on track for that. But awarding a half a season of results is, you know, not necessarily what that award is supposed to be. That said, I also really don't care that much about individual awards. 16 starts, you're literally at half a season. If he gets to 20, it's probably more of a conversation, which he probably will. 20 and 100 plus innings is a little bit better as far as like a chunk of a season. But yeah, I would maybe even say that I lean Merrill, that Merrill should win it. He's been really good. We're going to take a look at him in a minute. But yeah, it's tough. Much as I love Skeens, that's a little bit tough. I think Merrill's got a very good case to be made. In some ways, though, too, it is an award that they kind of use as a, you know, an anointer of the next big thing. It's a little bit of a popularity contest kind of an award sometimes. So that's where I think Skeens edges him out, just because, like I said, everybody wants him to win. Everybody wants him to be that next big thing. Where Jackson Merrill, like, you know, the Padres is not exactly a priority. But he deserves it. He's been great. So anyway, Arrighetti at price, 75 on DraftKings most in particular. Definitely worth throwing some dice. If you're building one lineup, do you want to target the Orioles with Arrighetti? Probably not, but you could do worse. And he fits in as a solid SP2 option there. He definitely brings strikeout upside to the table. He's just one of the more threatened pitchers by the quality of the team on the other side in this entire slate. You can see the Orioles checking in at 4.45, the second highest total on the entire board. Corbin Burns going for them. He's got a 13% swinging strike rate and a 28.2% CSW this season. All right. 14.7 and 30% for Dylan Cease. So remember when I was talking about Schwelly, 14.3 and 31.1. So Schwellenbach has the best swinging strike and best CSW on this slate. And it's a slate that includes... no, the swinging is a little bit higher for Cease. All right. But comparable numbers to Dylan Cease. What was Skeens at, though? Yeah, better than Skeens in both departments. Don't underestimate Schwellenbach. I'm telling you, he's good. Anyway, I'll try and stop bouncing around here. 23.1% strikeout rate for Burns this season. A 3.10 ERA, 3.55 xFIP. Not really walking anybody at 6.1%. 13% swinging. Stuff Plus still loves the arsenal. Despite a little bit of diminishment in terms of the strikeout output, he's still been very, very good. He's still very difficult to homer against. Just 31.4% hard hits, 87.5 miles an hour of exit velo, 6.6% barrels, 11 degree average launch. It's amounted to a 2.88% home run rate that maybe there's a little bit of bad misfortune in there. 281 last year, 289 the year before, so I guess right in line with where he's supposed to be. All the contact numbers look pretty much the same. You can see a little bit of loss of strikeout from last year, and last year was a big dip from the year before. But still pitching very well, and he's honestly not priced like the old Corbin Burns. 87 on DraftKings is very fair. 97 on FanDuel, no issues with it. It's just a tough spot. 18.3% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the Astros lineup. Part of that is juiced up a little bit by the 27.8% there, 23.3 there for Ben Gamel. If you take, as we always highlight, their top 5 hitters are ridiculous. 15.4% strikeout rate, including Victor Caratini in there. That's the same, basically, regardless of who's hitting in the top 5 for the Astros. They're always very low strikeout up top. So it's a challenging spot for Burns. We all know how good the Astros can be. Even in a year where some of them are struggling a little bit to find their full quality, where they're missing some pieces, they're still dangerous. But so is Corbin Burns. So if he's going to be a little less popular than the other guys at the top of the slate, definitely feel like you can load up on some additional shares of Corbin Burns. Most particularly there. At 97 on FanDuel, you do get a nice discount from these two guys. Very, very playable. It's just you do have Sanchez there at 81. Got a Lodolo that's pretty playable. I feel like there's some flexibility around that FanDuel's price. Astros bats somewhat in play, but not a great opportunity facing Burns. Gonna have to be at peak level. Altuve's got 16 homers and 18 steals, another very solid season with a 126 WRC plus, but the ISO's down pretty significantly. He's been a 200 ISO player each of the last few seasons. The home run and stolen base output is not bad, but the overall extra base hit output has been diminished somewhat. Still a 300 hitter with a 351 on base, so it's just quibbling around the edges as far as Altuve. 5,300, 3,500, fairly priced at the top of the lineup. 52-33 for Alex Bregman, who's now up to 20 home runs, slashing 261, 318, 450, up to a 189 ISO, a 117 WRC plus. Remember when we were really concerned about Alex Bregman's season? He's pulled it together. I mean, this looks exactly like he used to. No issues with it there. Churio is another player, yeah, as you guys are talking about, that coming into the year, not knowing with, I would imagine he was the favorite, not knowing if Skeens was going to have, what his opportunity was going to look like. But yeah, Churio, if you asked MLB, was probably the guy that they were hoping would have the monster season and win it. The season he's had, as you guys are saying, has been good, and we looked at it yesterday. We've talked about it a bunch throughout the year, and he's really had a better, second half run, but just doesn't have the numbers to compete with Merrill right now. Mamba saying, I see, notice you didn't mock Terry for calling Arenado wash, then he proceeded to hit a walk-off grand slam. Did he? I didn't catch that. Good for him. Arenado's been a fantastic hitter. My biggest concern with him is that I have him for another $44 in the Dynasty League next year. The way that swing has fallen apart. But yeah, nobody's saying he's not capable of knocking one over the wall every now and again. He's done so a few times this year. But the overall output, the overall hard hits and everything, ouch. 1 for 4 day today with an RBI. He's in my lineup this week because I lost Austin Riley, which sucks. Going down the Astros lineup, so you get Bregman again, just really has pulled that season together, and he's super low strikeout at 13.1%. Just having an Alex Bregman year at the end here. Alvarez at 59-37, very playable, 25 home runs, one of the best hitters in baseball at 242 ISO, striking out just 14.9%, walking 11.2%, elite level contact, even with a dip from last year and the year before's output. He hasn't been quite as good this season, but those are still fantastic numbers across the board. He is still a superstar outfielder. Jainer Diaz, 44-29, has 15 home runs. He's also slashing 304, 330, 464. He's created runs 23% better than average. I feel like we've been talking about him in that spot, in the cleanup spot, in this lineup all season long, with his price right around like 44, 42 on DraftKings, sub 3,000 on FanDuel. It's another player. I mean, he's not been outrageous, but you're talking about an everyday catcher, 476 plate appearances this year, who's hitting 300, getting on at a 330 clip, who's got created runs 23% better than average, who's got power, who's hit 15 homers, who's got good contact numbers, 46.7% hard hits, 8.4% barrels, who doesn't strike out, who doesn't really walk, so he's always putting the ball in play. It's a very, very good player, and for our purposes, that's a dynamite catcher option over here. Obviously, again, suffers from the matchup against Corbin Burns like all of his teammates today, but it's just a guy, keep in mind, over the last month of the season, just keep on going back to him, because all season long, he's been good, and all season long, he has not seen a price increase. Victor Caratini, another very good catcher option in this lineup. 6 home runs and 167 plate appearances this year, 167 ISO, 121 WRC+, plus, and hits the ball very, very hard, as we've looked at numerous times this year. He's also low strikeout, low walk, and well over 40% hard hits each of the last few seasons. Victor Caratini is a good hitter. For $3,000 at the position, nice little price offset there from the already cheap Jainer Diaz, $500 cheaper on FanDuel. It would be a weird approach to go both of those guys on FanDuel, but you could definitely do it, and you could probably get away with it. And then it's just a matter of which of the top 3 are you sacrificing. My personal preference would be to go 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, but my actual preference would just be to go like 1, 2, 3, and then one of those guys. But I think either way, very, very playable. Down lineup, it gets a little bit thinner. Ben Gamel, not great over 30 plate appearances this year, kind of mixed quality. We've seen just mixed quality output from him in years past, but does have the ability to drive the ball from the left side a little bit. Jake Myers was having a better season earlier in the season. We've kind of cratered down to 229, 294, 385 now, 6% worse than average for run creation. He has given us some counting stats, 12 homers and 9 steals, but I think the bloom is kind of off the rose with Jake Myers. Guy I'm interested in down lineup is Shea Whitcomb. I talked about him yesterday. Over 18 plate appearances, we're at 267, 389, 400 with a 132 WRC plus. Obviously, microscopically small sample there, but he was very, very good in the minors for them this year. Became, he kind of rocketed up some prospect boards, made it to the show. Cost just 26 at third base on DraftKings. I don't love going to him over Alex Bregman, but he's half the price. 2,300 at shortstop on FanDuel. I have no issues having him as the alternative to Jeremy Pena in this lineup. Mauricio Dubon, 26, mix and match caliber player on both sides, 2,500 on DraftKings. 4 homers, 3 steals. Low quality output, but not terrible from the bottom of the lineup, and doesn't strike out, doesn't walk. So you can rely on him too. If these guys are on base, he'll take a poke and maybe drive one of them in. If he's just setting the table for the top of the lineup, he's capable of doing that as well. 284 on base is not good, but just putting the ball in play, he's an option, but he's a low-end option from the bottom of the lineup. For the O's, Colton Cowser, 7.83 in the home run model today. He's got 18 on the season. 201 ISO, pretty great season out of him. 13.8% barrels, 46.9% hard hits. Strikes out a ton, 29.2% strikeouts, and doesn't offset it enough with walks. But still getting on at a 325 clip is not bad. And the 19% above average run creation with all his power, pretty great option to lead off against a good but gettable righty. Let's call Arrighetti. I think that's fair. Santander taking some pokes from the left side today, 5,200, 3,600. He's got 37 home runs on the season and a 286 ISO in the best year of his career. Premium power bat for a very fair price on DraftKings at 52. 36, I'm perfectly happy with that price on FanDuel. 6,000 and 4,200 across sites for Gunnar, one of the top shortstops available on today's slate. 12.4% barrels, 54.3% hard hits. Over the magic number for home run upside today at 10.94, number 2 on this team. 33 home runs, 15 steals, a 162 WRC plus. He's just absolutely tremendous. Ryan O'Hearn for just 38.29 has 12 homers, a very good slash line for the season, gets on base at a 352 clip. His created runs 27% better than average. Very low strikeout, pretty high walk rate, so that feeds the on base percentage. Still hits the ball pretty hard from the left side, 43.3% hard hits for a very cheap price, first base and outfield eligibility. Ryan O'Hearn is not a bad option from the cleanup spot. Adley, if you need a catcher for 5,000, not a bad option there. 3,100, I like him a little better when he's hitting, top couple spots in the lineup, but 5 is not a bad spot to find him. He's got power, so he can pay that off in terms of driving runners in. 18 home runs on the season, hitting behind a guy, getting on at a 352 clip, benefits as far as correlated scoring goes, driving in RBI opportunities. A 111 WRC plus for Adley. He's a superstar catcher. Absolutely happy to have him if I can get there. Ryan Mountcastle, just 4,000, 3,000 across sites, 13 home runs, just a 158 ISO, but still making very solid contact, 44.4% hard hits, 8.9% barrels. Not a guy to sleep on. If you're building one Orioles lineup, does he have to be in it? No. If you're building 2, he should be in one of them. If you're building 3, he should be in 2 of them. Jackson Holiday is still very cheap at second base, 37 on DraftKings, 28 on FanDuel, both middle infield spots. Stuck in the 5 home runs he hit in a hurry after getting re-promoted, but a lot of talent there for the cheap pricing. Let's say that. 113 pretty mediocre plate appearances overall in the show, but we know that the numbers in the minors are just elite, and he's one of the top overall prospects in baseball. Cedric Mullins at 39.29, 13 homers and 23 steals in just 380 chances. 227, 286, 399, just a 94 WRC plus. But as we've looked at before, this is a guy who in his past has gone 30-30, and this output is not actually far off that pace over fewer than 400 plate appearances. The slash line's not good, the reliability, the consistency's not good, but some of the counting stats are actually pretty decent for Cedric Mullins, and he's not expensive. Ramon Urias, 3,000, 2,500, 8 home runs and 243 chances, a little bit of sneaky pop from the bottom of the lineup. 156 ISO's not killer, but a 108 WRC plus and a tiny sample or a half a season, a sample of plate appearances, third of a season. For 3,025, it's a player who in the past has delivered some home run upside for very cheap at very low ownership on days where this stack is a priority. So I definitely think Ramon Urias is in the mix if you're building a bunch of Orioles stacks. I guess I gotta, given the second highest total on the slate, we've got to start with Orioles bats. It's probably Baltimore bats, Corbin Burns, Arrighetti, Astros bats. And for the Astros, it really is just the top 5 plus Shea Whitcomb. Not that, I shouldn't say it that way. Because you can get a little bit out of Ben Gamble, Jake Myers, Mauricio Dubon. So it is a playable bottom end. But for me, again, Whitcomb is the top priority, and these guys are the guys I'm way, way more interested in if I'm trying to take shots against Corbin Burns. Last game up. Mets and the Pods. I think we've got these lineups. No, we don't. Not on Labs, anyway. Let's see. Oh, here we go. This is well-timed. Shelton on monitoring Paul Skeen's workload. This is 9 minutes ago per underdog. There's no immediate plan to shut him down. There has never been any immediate plans to shut him down. How we monitor that, whether it's an innings limit or a workload limit per game, we'll be thoughtful about that. So basically exactly what we already knew. No immediate plan, no actual announced plan, but they're watching his innings, they're watching his pitches, which they're going to be doing anyway for every pitcher that takes the mound. It's, it's like when an NBA coach says, like, yeah, he's in the rotation and we're going to be monitoring his minutes today. They monitor their minutes every day, healthy or injured. It doesn't mean anything. It's just coach speak. So I think this is just telling us this is coach speak for Skeens' full go today. 90 plus at least. I'm not worried about it today. We'll keep an eye on it, but I'm not worried about it for today. And we do not have these last lineups. Larry C. and Trey having a get off my lawn conversation. Larry, yeah, I want to check out the Charlie Hustle series as well. I haven't watched it yet either. What was the old man stuff about? Trey's 37 and turning into his father. They hit Judge and he waved it off and said, I'd rather just hit. Albert Bell. Trey saying, I love Barry Bonds and steroids don't help too much in baseball other than for healing wise, but Judge probably having 2 60-plus home run seasons is probably one of the most impressive feats in the non-steroid era. Agree with the back part. I also like Barry Bonds, and I think that you should just be allowed to, if you're willing to inject shit in your body to perform better. Like, the whole point of sports is to watch people performing at the peak of possible human ability. So why not let them enhance? Why not let them get to higher peaks of human ability? That's the entire point of exhibition sports, right? That's what it's for. The only reason to care about steroids is if you care about records, because obviously they do damage to records. But as the saying goes, records are made to be broken. And things have always changed, specifically in baseball. The height of the mound, the ability, the idea that minorities weren't in the game for a very long time was a pretty big deal. There's all sorts of things that you could point to that say, like, well, that was a big change, and that's a sea change when you let half the world's population or more into the sport. So there's certain sea change things, and there's a big one coming with just genetic tinkering. This ability to use things like CRISPR and edit the human genome and everything. Well, you think people aren't going to be genetically designing kids who are superior athletes and have green eyes and blonde hair or whatever they're looking for? Like, all that shit is coming down the pipe. So the idea of just letting somebody put some chemicals into their body that makes them a better baseball player, which I think, to your point, it quite clearly does make you a better baseball player. We have that whole era that you named in the chat there, the steroid era. It's not called that because it didn't work, right? We saw that it works. Decreased ball size, as Gophis says. Yeah, all those guys, all those non-Hall of Fame eligible guys walking around with their tiny balls, but all their monster home run totals. But I think they should just let him do it. I really do. But I don't think that's an issue with Mr. Judge. He's just a different kind of animal. So the Mets have Luis Severino on the mound, 6,800, 8,400 across sites. He's having an okay year. I got to give it to him. Stuff Plus likes the Arsenal this year, 104 marked by Stuff Plus, a little bit above average. He's been managing home runs and premium contact just fine, just 34.3% hard hits, 86.9 miles an hour of exit velo, limited barrels, manageable launch angle. He's worked 142 and 2/3. That alone for Severino is kind of an accomplishment. Made 24 starts. 19.6% strikeouts, 3.91 ERA, a 4.30 xFIP. Those are all just, average-ish, okay-ish kind of numbers. But it's just nice to see him completing a season or getting most of the way to completing a full season. Just 23.3% CSW, 8.7% swinging strikes. You can nitpick a lot of these things. He's no ace, he's not elite, but he's not priced like it. 6,800 very much in play as an SP2 on DraftKings. 84 a little bit more challenging on FanDuel, especially given the low strikeout, 18.1% nature of the Padres lineup. Not a great spot, not a great opportunity, just more, kind of a compulsory shares situation with his price being where it is on DraftKings. If you're building more than a couple lineups on DraftKings, I don't see how you're not including Luis Severino in your pitching pool. Just where that price is. Because you're not. I can't imagine you're going any of those guys. Sanchez is going to be wildly popular for that price in that spot. If he's not, just fire away with that. Arrighetti, probably more threatened by the Orioles and significantly more expensive. So I think this is just... people have to be defaulting to that. What's the ownership? Let's talk a little ownership real quick. 525. You thought I wouldn't figure out a way to stretch a 5-game slate to 2 hours, didn't you? DraftKings, FanDuel, this matters a lot less. Wow. Okay. If RG's ownership is correct, a lot of people are spending their time mixing and matching those guys and these two guys. Sanchez is on the board and he's got popularity, but it's another one of the situations, like I forget who it was yesterday, where they've got him just under 20, and I feel like that should be 30 plus with him at that price against that version of the Braves. That seems like a good spot. It's not completely differentiated as far as that ownership goes. The one who's single-digit owned, surprisingly, is the guy I was just talking about, is Severino. Again, that's a bad spot in terms of there aren't a ton of strikeouts there, and he's not a great strikeout pitcher this season. And he's mediocre, but succeeding. He's okay, average. I gotta stop interchanging average and mediocre. Those don't mean the same thing. With him in single-digit ownership for that price on DraftKings, that gets really interesting. We're not talking about a major projection gap between him and these guys. It's a matter of a strikeout that he may or may not be able to find. But that's a big price offset for most of these guys. And again, even Sanchez, lower owned than I thought he'd be, but pushing upper teens. Sevy just in like middle single digits becomes really appealing for some discount there. Not bad. I'm not really expecting a monster game. Again, tough opponent. 4.9% strikeouts out of Luis Ariz. He's going to put the ball in play 5 times against Severino, or 5 times for the day, 3 of them against Severino. Jerkson Profar having a really good season and also low strikeout. Sub 15% strikeout rate from Profar this year. He's been so good across the board this season. Totally unexpected. Biggest surprise in baseball to me this year. Cronenworth, 17% strikeouts. Manny, 19.5. Xander, Merrill. Everybody in this lineup outside of Higgy, who's got tons of power, is pretty good at avoiding the strikeout. So it's not a safe spot for Severino by any means. It's an alliterative one, apparently. But that price is really appealing on DK. 8,400, I want no part of it on FanDuel. I'll consider it maybe if I, built out a bunch of lineups and one of them happened to land a little bit shorter on cash and I had used a ton of Sanchez already. Maybe then I go there. But I don't think you need to consider it nearly as strongly on FanDuel as you do on DraftKings. And then Dylan Cease is just really, really good. He's one of the top pitchers on the board. He only costs 94 on DraftKings, which feels like a bargain. 10-1 on FanDuel. Happy to pay that price if I can get there. 31.5% strikeout rate on the season. A 3.46 ERA with a 3.26 xFIP. 14.7% swinging strikes. Only guy approaching anywhere near him on this slate is Spencer Schwellenbach. 30% CSW for him on the season, a 122 mark by Stuff Plus. Dylan Cease's excellent. Very high-end strikeout pitcher. The Mets are good, though. This is a challenging Mets lineup. You can see all these positive run creators. The entire top 7 in this projected version of the lineup. That comes to a 125 average WRC+. Plus. These Mets are good run creators. They've got some good power bats through the lineup. Some decent speed. So it's not a trifling spot for Dylan Cease, but the ceiling is tremendous. If you're going to Mets bats, Frankie Lindor off the top for just 5,400 on DraftKings, 37 on FanDuel, has 25 home runs and 25 stolen bases with a 210 ISO and a 131 WRC+, chasing a 30-30 season. I like him to get there. Mark Vientos is still just 4,600. He hit his 20th homer yesterday. We were laughing about it when it happened. 276 ISO on the season, a 280, 338, 556 slash line. Creating runs 50% better than average. Roughly 20 points better than everybody else on this team. One of the best marks on the entire slate. Better than everybody on the Padres. I don't understand. He plays the same position as Manny Machado. Let's compare the numbers with Manny. Over 498 plate appearances, Manny's hit the same number of home runs. He has scored more runs. We'll give him that. He's driven in more, but the opportunity for Vientos hasn't been the same, and he's only made 314 plate appearances. Pretty sure he closes that gap pretty quickly if he makes up the plate appearances. 181 ISO for Manny. Not that good. Not really, Manny Machado level. 115 WRC+, plus, perfectly fine. 15% better than average run creator. But neither of those compares at all. He's nearly 100 points of ISO, worse than Mark Vientos this year. 150 WRC+. Plus. And Vientos cost 4,600 at third base, while Manny cost 5,000 at third base today. I know we've got more track record with Manny Machado. I'm not saying that Manny's unfairly priced. I am saying that Vientos, it's getting stupid at this point. 15.6% barrels, 46.3% hard hits. He's having a monster season. Brandon Nimmo for 47.33 has 18 home runs and 11 stolen bases. Lefty bat, 185 ISO, 118 WRC+. Plus. Very solid outfielder. You can always include Nimmo in your Mets stacks. You can get to him as a one-off, especially now that his price has cooled a little bit. 47.33, not overly expensive. Probably still not the ideal one-off bat, but gets on base, provides some correlated scoring, and definitely has power, good counting stat upside in both categories, so not a bad option. JD Martinez, 4,200, 3,200, has 14 homers, a 187 ISO, still makes killer contact, 14.8% barrels, 46.1% hard hits. He hits ahead of Pete Alonso, who's at 12.3 and 44.1 in those two categories. 42 for JD Martinez with first base and outfield eligibility, 49 for Pete Alonso. Both those players pretty cheap for their talents on DK. 32 and 3,300 apiece for them on FanDuel. Martinez only outfield eligibility over there, but easily playable. Both power bats are in play. You can consider that a one or the other one situation if you don't want to extend too much for some home run or bust type players, but both of those guys do have a little bit more than that. 338 on base, 332 on base for Martinez and Alonso, 123 and a 126 WRC+. Jesse Winker's cheap for his talent, 3,700, 2,900 from the left side, 12 home runs, 14 steals, and 433 plate appearances this year. He's created runs 23% better than average and a very nice bounce back to form. Just happy to see him playing well. It's a player that I like and had completely fallen apart over the last couple of seasons. So glad to see him back. He's easy to afford. He hits left-handed, so you can do worse if you're stacking up against Dylan Cease, but I think you could do a lot better than stacking up against Dylan Cease today. Frankie Alvarez, 3,200, 2,600, 6 home runs, down to 249, 316, 403. The uptick in quality across the slash line hasn't really carried forward. Needs to either start getting some of that back or hitting for some more power. Last year we saw a ridiculous power output with lower numbers. 106 WRC+. Plus. The numbers across the 244 plate appearances are still okay, but we got to drive these back up or we got to drive that back up with that going up. McNeil, mix and match caliber second base and outfield on FanDuel. 236, 298, 390 this season, 3 points below average for run creation. That little stretch of power, but that's over. Not really a fan. Harrison Bader, an okay outfielder to get some oddball counting stats out of at the bottom of the lineup if you're building a bunch of Met stacks, but not a priority in any way. On the Padres side, Luis Arraez, 41-28, slashing 302, 336, 374. Not the completely ridiculous seasons that he's had over the last couple of years winning batting titles, but still a very, very solid season. Very good table setter from the top of the lineup and just does not strike out. Profar for 48-34 has 20 homers, a 183 ISO, 146 WRC plus in the best season of his career. Definitely think he's in play if you're stacking up pods against Severino, and they check in at 4.18, so that's not an unplayable total. It's one of just 3 teams above a 4 today. Cronenworth for 45-3,000. Medium quality in terms of hits, low strikeout rate with a medium walk rate, 15 home runs, a 162 ISO, creating runs 10% better than average. He's a playable piece on any given slate that the Padres are on, but he's not exactly having a killer year. He's just been fine. Manny Machado at 5,032. We just compared him to Mark Vientos, but if we're just looking at him on his own, that is a cheap price to find Manny, for what he's done over the course of his career, for the fact that he's still hitting the ball extremely, extremely hard. 3,200 on FanDuel at third base. He's 20 home runs, 181 ISO. It's not exactly the killer superstar level season that we've grown accustomed to seeing out of Manny over the years, but 115 WRC plus. He's nowhere near unplayable against Luis Severino. Xander Bogaerts, 42-29, a lot of quality for a cheap price there. 273, 317, 377 this year. 1 point below average for run creation, but he missed a large chunk of the season where he probably would have gotten some of that back. Still low strikeout, low walk, puts the ball in play. Not mashing this season, 5.1% barrels, 32.4% hard hits. Those numbers have been in a little bit of a tailspin over the last 2 seasons, but still a very capable bat. And that price is really low at second base, so you can do worse than filling a lineup with Xander Bogaerts. Jackson Merrill at 46-33. Let's look at the numbers. We were talking about him as a potential rookie of the year. He's made 466 plate appearances to Skeens' 16 starts. He's slashing 291, 322, 491. He's got a 200 ISO, a 127 WRC plus. He's hit 18 homers, stolen 13 bases, outside shot at a 2020 season as a rookie. You don't see numbers like this from a rookie that often. This is a very, very good season. And it's good just like across the board. I say you don't see numbers like this, I mean for the complete season. The low strikeout rate at 17.8%. The very, very good premium contact numbers. The solid average, the good on-base percentage, good slug, good returns in both categories of counting stats. A 200-plus ISO, great WR. He's just been good all the way through the stat line. A lot of times you'll see, all right, think of like Francisco Alvarez from last year. Hit for monster power, but that's all he was able to do. Ellie hit a ton of home runs, stole a ton of bases, but couldn't hit for average, couldn't really get on base reliably in his first season. This year, that's completely changed. Turned into a superstar. Jackson Merrill just arrived fully formed. He's been doing this all year long. David Peralta behind him, 35-27, mix and match caliber veteran outfielder, 111 WRC plus, 6 home runs. Higgy, up to 14 home runs in 196 plate appearances now, 275 ISO, just an absolute masher of a catcher, 12.3% barrels, 40.2% hard hits. He's just here to catch the ball and hit home runs. 222, 67, 495, 111 WRC plus on the season. I love some Higgy. He's a priority for me when I play Padres, but I get it if you don't want to go to the 8th spot for your catcher. Tyler Wade, 28-22, mix and match quality infielder, if that. 8 stolen bases, but a 62 WRC plus this year. Pretty low end at the bottom of the lineup. Dylan Cease, way up top. Padres bats, Mets bats, Luis Severino, but 6,800 on DraftKings again to hammer that point home one last time as we transition back to the pitching board. If he's going to be owned in the single digits or even 10-ish% for that price, that's interesting, even in a bad matchup. But running down the pitching board again, now that we're through all the games, Paul Skeens, top of your board, going up against Cincinnati, 10-9, 9-9, knowing that he's probably throwing a full game of pitches based on what the coach was saying. Gotta love the spot, but you get a nice little discount on Cease for his monster upside, even against the pretty decent Mets lineup. 10-1, 9,400 for him versus 10-9, 99. It's not a bad discount for a very talented pitcher who's been doing Paul Skeens things as Dylan Cease for several seasons now. Corbin Burns, not a bad alternative at 97-87. Price continues to go down while the quality doesn't necessarily. He hasn't been as good as Skeens and Cease for strikeouts this season, but he's been very good for ERA and allowing runs, limiting power, and doing all the things that he needs to do to still have a monster year, despite a dip in strikeouts down to the 23% range. Even against the Astros, though, on the right day, you can get a 1-4 output out of Corbin Burns, no problem. Chris Sanchez at 81, 7,000, most likely going to be more popular than he's projected for. Just, the low 20 kind of range on DK for that price. Doesn't sound right to me. I'm thinking more in the 30s, 30 plus on a short slate, even more. But if he's low owned, you can hammer that spot. There's strikeout upside beyond what he normally might get against that version of the Atlanta lineup. There's only a couple threatening bats in there for him now, and he is very good at keeping the ball down, limiting home run power. On FanDuel at 81, he deserves to be very popular. I'm hoping he kind of threads through at playable ownership compared to just with all those good options on the board. But that's a very nice price on FanDuel at 81. Lodolo playable on the other side of the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh game, 88, 8,000. But among those top pitchers, among the guys, 15 plus on DraftKings, 30 or thereabouts on FanDuel, probably my least favorite. I'd probably rather take some shots with Schwellenbach. Well, maybe not. Not for 500 more against Philly. That's unfair to Nick Lodolo. I do think Schwelly between the two is the more talented pitcher. If you give him the same matchup, even at the higher price, I would take it. But not with the matchup considered, not against Philly. But those guys are close. I do think Schwellenbach's got the talent and the strikeout upside to put up a pretty nice score even against Philadelphia. Arrighetti against Baltimore has that kind of talent level as well. Both of these guys, both Spencers, are going to be challenged by their opponents. That's really the only downside, but if they come with a little bit of ownership reduction because of that, I think both of those guys are capable of beating both of those teams and having a good DFS day for you. Severino against the Padres. Again, not a great price on FanDuel, but playable over there and going to come with no ownership there. And if he's owned under 10% or around 10% for 68 on DraftKings, he's definitely in play for your bargain bin SP2, especially because these guys really are not. This is an opener-follower situation. This is a terrible pitcher. He's only 5,000 on DraftKings. If you go to those $4,000 and $5,000 options, if that's your approach, then he is there. But I don't think he's got much of a lane to succeed. We haven't seen him succeed much this year. He's very targetable for power upside against. Doesn't look like a good spot even for the discount. I'd rather have Severino against the Padres for 1,800 more, which is saying a lot. Burr's not going to give you innings for your 4,000. Your inning, maybe an inning and a third, inning and two-thirds. Yarbs for 77, mispriced for the opportunity. Campusano, no Higgy? Damn. Hate when they do that. So this is your home run board. Unedited for things like no Higgy, unfortunately. There's Vientos. Top-rated Met for power on a team that includes Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso and JD Martinez. And somehow Vientos costs $4,600. I feel like we're going to be talking about this till the end of the season. Do you think he actually gets over 5,000 before the end of the season? I really hope so. Dude's going to finish with 30 home runs and costing $4,200. Orioles' top end looks pretty good. Phillies' top end looks pretty good for power upside, but obviously a somewhat limited opportunity. Ozuna, I really don't totally buy that home run number. It's just reflective of how good he's been for power over the last couple of seasons. But Chris Sanchez, again, elite at limiting power and keeping the ball on the ground. So, he's like a Framber Valdez type of a pitcher. Some power showing for the Pirates. Joey Bart, Brian Reynolds showing a little bit below the magic number, but not bad in the high 7s and 8 territory. Comparable to Jordan Alvarez, Frankie Lindor tonight. A lot of playable parts. Short slate, a lot of playable parts. Let's see what that... So the pods went Arraez, Profar, Cronenworth, Machado, Bogarts, Merrill, Peralta, Campusano, and Mason McCoy in at shortstop in the 9 spot. I do not know about Mason McCoy. He's 29. He's got 5 home runs and 25 stolen bases in 432 chances as a 29-year-old in AAA this season. In 2022 for Seattle in AAA, he had 21 homers and stole 22 bases, probably his best year as a 27-year-old. Feels like a player that would have been here by now if he was going to be anybody. 29 and a half. He's made a couple plate appearances in the show, starting last year. He made 1 plate appearance over 6 games. Seems like he was in there as a defensive replacement a couple times. 3 plate appearances in his career. I think that's it, gang. I'm kind of running out of stuff to talk about. 5:43. Anybody see Alien Romulus yet? I did. I liked it. Saw it last week on last Thursday actually, when we had that short day. I like to take advantage of the short days and jump out, catch a flick or something in the afternoon. But Romulus was pretty good. If you like the Alien franchise, more Ridley than Cameron, more Alien than Aliens, in other words. Kind of a throwbackish kind of feel to the to the original, and like the almost haunted house kind of feel, just in the ship with the alien and everything. There's a couple moments that I didn't totally love, more toward the end, but I think what they do at the end kind of worked in the grand mythology of the thing. And then there's one line at the end that almost completely destroyed the entire movie. It's just such a bad franchisey line. But other than that, it was good. It was enjoyable, fun. Kind of tense ride. A lot of good monster scenes and stuff. So fun time. That's about it, guys. So Spencer the King, I appreciate you hanging out for the show. Hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. I know Spence is here all the time, so I'm sure he has. But if you're new, do those things so you know when we go live with other stuff. Check out our guys over at acemind.io as well. They're a great spot for sim tools, for optimizers, all the major sports for DFS, some of the minor sports for DFS. They do a killer job over there. Promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, 20% off your first month at acemind.io. I'm going to go punch out, get some lineups updated in the next hour before lock, and they'll be up on the site very, very quickly because it's short games. And wish you guys good luck tonight. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. We'll see you tomorrow for a monster 14-game slate. Buckle up for a long show for that one. I'll see you guys.